League debut and MIBR's chance to bounce back after a tough loss to W7M in week number 1. I'm Jays Wills. I'm joined by Fellow here, and we're going to take you through this map and hopefully the next 2 maps, assuming everything goes according to plan. But diving into Cafe, here we go. The operator bans in front of us now, John.
Starting out with the Ying ban for MIBR makes a lot of sense if your opponent has not a lot of bookwork on this map for them playing on it. Then bring out the Ying against a more experienced team on this map is a whole lot of sense. Just make your life on the defense 10 times easier. And an interesting Amaru ban picked out by Tropic House, maybe also expecting that from MIBR, or just not a big fan of it when it's brought out against them just in general.
A surprising ban on any map. I'd say Cafe is one of those few maps where it is maybe, you could kind of see the reasoning behind it. I mean, you look at that top floor, you look at Heaven Window, for example, a pretty typical position where you'll see that Amaru use to just Gara hook through the window, go for some kind of quick rush plant strategy or something like that. And maybe Tropicals reviewed the MIBR footage from last week, saw their performance on border, saw their willingness to go quick, to go punchy and aggressive on the attack, and they decided to limit that possibility here. Hard to know exactly what the reasoning is, but I think that's the best theorizing we could possibly do there. On the defensive side, these bans are pretty expected. The Valkyrie, those black eye cameras, so useful here on Cafe, so useful on any map, especially a map that can fall victim to so many nitro cells and C4 potential. And then the Azami ban, those Kiba barriers will not be a factor here either. That leaves the Solus up, and that's one thing we're going to have to focus on because MIBR are bringing her out right away.
And have that as your one main roamer when defending this top floor bar and quick, while the rest of your emphasis is going to probably be on extending around that pillar and bathroom area, which based on the rotations being made, the reinforcements and utility setup, I think it'll be a good way that MIBR will be trying to hold by the back of Pixel near that piano main bar area of the map for as long as they can, as if you're able to get that piano control, that can allow you to hold a nice couple of angles, getting that cruiser wall open up, cut the site almost at the part, and maybe begin to work your way down that white hallway to get a bit more aggressive towards that cocktail side of the map. But again, I like how MIBR is also not putting all their eggs into one basket, and they still have a main roamer, which can be ignored from time to time when defending this top floor bomb site.
Right, they have that choice of whether they want to take the time to clear out the rest of the map or if they want to focus on going a bit more direct. The Solus, a danger, of course, but not something that will totally cripple your attack if she's last alive, for example. If you clear out the players up above, the Solus only has 2 impact grenades. You can't do everything by yourself down below. So that's something that both of these teams will have to keep an active eye on. For now, though, Tropicals will work their way up to the roof, up to these windows. Here you see STK on the stage rappel, beginning to pressure into piano, and is going to have to focus on the presence of those players in freezer and in bathroom. You see that rotation. You see all of that soft destruction pre-established. A lot of those Aruni fists through the wall to establish a couple of openings and allow MIBR to shut down anyone working their way into this side of the map.
And a good placement of utility by the defenders of MIBR as well. It's going to be a living nightmare for SDK to try to burn through all the Surya gates and ADSs alike just to get to that deployable shield that isn't even by Pixel. It's instead put a little bit farther back inside of bathroom, which is an even more difficult angle to actually, get your soft destruction through to remove that power position. So a little bit more map control is going to need to be gathered by Tropic House, which I believe the Dokkaebi is already done, but Levy, their hard breacher, is the first one to fall by Reduct, and a beautiful angle found by Nigel to shut down the Zofia as well. And I believe that shield is still standing strong by bathroom.
Yeah, back-to-back kills and a good foothold on this round for MIBR. Tropicals have lost 2 bodies, and as you said, John, MIBR, they can stay comfortable here in freezer. Nigel doesn't have to move. He can keep swinging. He can keep fragging out. Tropicals, they go for the miracle play, just sending it through long bar, hoping to outfrag their opponents, but now it comes down to PPWS in a 1v2. Luke Kid gone. Hold on a minute, it's just a 1v1. Just like that, this is not over yet, but Perez knows exactly where this is being planted. The Solus scanner such a key piece of utility in this round, as we predicted, John, and it will be the piece of utility that allows MIBR to hang on to what almost slipped away.
Starting out strong on the top floor and ending out just as strong as well for Perez, winning that 1 versus 1. But again, we talked about the, I guess, insurance policy by MIBR playing so far back, but still holding the same positions and denying that entryway from the piano side of the map, but by not the usual sense of it. Instead of having that deployable shield by Pixel, they're expecting more of a default clear by Tropical, so they play a little bit farther back, which kind of forces them to play into MIBR's hand, which nets them almost 3 instantaneous kills in that round. And although PPWS did slip by their fingertips just creeping in through Cigar Shop, that was the only successful entry point that Tropicals had in that first round. And luckily, with Perez having so much information and so many opportunities to deny that plant, it was really only a matter of time before he closed in on his prey and got that round win for MIBR.
That came close, though. It really did.
Yeah.
I mean,
we
talked about MIBR, right, relying on those hero plays. Tropicals, I mean, what a hero play to start off the map. PPWS, a quad kill, nearly the ace to win the round in a 3v5 clutch situation that was quickly turned into a 2v4, got really messy really fast. Speaking of messy, STK is going to get ripped apart by a hailstorm of bullets. I believe that was from the snow door, and a quick run out from MIBR to set the tone here in this second round quickly.
Luckily, STK is still alive, so you have 2 extra sets of grenades to use in this round and a little bit more information with the help of those Gemini replicators, which, speaking of, Tropicals not only are trying to clear out this first floor, but they still have somebody up above just to have a multi-pronged attack when dealing with this main extension of roamers, which so far is only the Solus, and they've already been located, but there is also a few defenders playing up on the top floor, so vertical coverage cannot be established just yet to flush out the Solus. It can only be a direct confrontation from the snow door, which again, STK, very low in HP. He's got to probably wait for a teammate to come back him up one way or another.
Well, as you predicted, John, you've got Nigel now joining to support this position. Levy is going to be the first one to fall, however, as Reduct will step up and get the opener. Nigel will drop away to safety now that they have 1 kill to speak of. We still see Perez holding that position in reading room, but right now we see Tropicals, I think, forced to pivot a little bit. They've crept their way in to this first floor. They're in coat check and reception already. Lucid's got to be careful of this pressure from behind him. Right now, he's got a deployable shield, a little bit of protection, a teammate over by Whiskey Bar, and a little bit of that backbone to rely on. But at any moment, like we saw in that last round, Tropicals could spring up and try to take these fights.
Luckily with MIBR as well, playing so far off the bomb site and holding these longer angles, that verticality that either Yex or Neskin could gather, it's not going to be as potent unless they can play for a post plant because of that. But with there still being someone up above, that being Perez on the Solus, who actually strikes onto PPWS, it's not going to be as reliable. There's Luke as well from Red Stairs, and now Tropicals, they will desperately try to get rid of this roaming Solus, who finds yet another, leaving just STK in a 1v5, desperately low in HP and even lower on options. Will get mopped down by the snow door, and it's flawlessly done by MIBR.
A flawless execution of a pretty standard roam. There was nothing too fancy there. It was just clean gunplay from MIBR, from Perez himself. I mean, how are you going to take the Solus down if he just keeps outgunning you left and right? I mean, that was just beautifully played. MIBR, they knew the power of that Solus in reading room. We saw how effectively Perez was using that gadget to identify where those attackers were coming from, what drones were creeping into the map. Was he spotted? Was he undetected? What kind of freedom he had to move around the map. So well played, and the coordination that we saw as well from Perez was perfect. Initially calling for some support, and we saw Nigel rotate around to help him, and then said, you know what? I'm doing fine. Nigel, you go back to the site. You pressure down below into reception, where Tropicals are also trying to make that entry from. No matter what they tried, Tropicals could simply not really get into the building. Or if they did, they could never really feel safe in the building, given how much pressure MIBR was applying. That is one way to suffocate your opponents, and Tropicals, that's exactly what they felt there. as MIBR delivered a flawless round 2, and now they look to do the same in round 3.
And with the top-down view we see, Jonah, for this extension up above, you can see how deadly the top floor actually was. There was a mirror window by the C1 rotate and another over in bathroom as well. They have a perfect crossfire for a top-to-bottom extension. And even if you had someone put on that white window to maybe get rid of the first mirror window that you could come into contact with, you've got to worry about a Surya gate and 2 sets of stuns, or 2 ADSs to catch stuns, pardon me, before you could even think about destroying that mirror window. So when Tropicals realize the amount of, I suppose, utility that's been committed to this top floor, they might need to think twice as to how exactly they want to attack this extension.
For now, though, they work their way in from above, just sending a couple of drones in to determine where these defenders lie in wait. Of course, if you want to take this top floor, there's going to be a lot of utility to clear out, a lot of manpower to remove. And it seems like Tropicals, that will be the plan initially. Smoke down and well placed as well, right on the rotate to kind of isolate this defense from one another. You see Perez now, the smoke as well, tucked here in bathroom. A quick rotate potentially available to him, but has to be careful because STK is watching that. Good kill and a good trade, really, because Nigel fell first. But that'll keep us in an even 4v4 as Tropicals, they try to contest this top floor, but MIBR are not going to give it up easily.
And now that you've killed the Iana, the only person by Piano, Perez can still hold this mirror window and throw another Toxic Babe to buy himself more time. He'll rotate back, hiding in the smoke, just waiting for the perfect moment. Tropicals, they are completely unaware as to where the smoke will be playing it, but they just narrowly spot him. A quick trade is found with the help of that Nitro Cell, falls playing underneath. And I thought for a moment there was still someone up above, but now that Reduct has fallen back, they have finally forfeited this top floor, but they've wasted so much time while doing so.
You see Levy looking down below, trying to use these angles that Yex is opening up with that breaching hammer. Just trying to get a foothold on this site below. It's an even 3v3, so that they know that in order to really pop down below and get a reading room push going, they're either going to need to know that this site is fully clear and these defenders are isolated, or really one more kill would help. I don't think MIBR are going to give them that opportunity, though. So Tropicals, they're going to have to rotate and go for this defuse. Bombs going down. Where's the coverage? It's a little late. PPWS not there in time, so Reduct can walk right up and deny the plant. Diffuser out of pocket. Yex has no time to drop down and do it. He'll whip out the pistol and hope to find the kills, but simply not enough time left on the clock and not enough options. Reduct with a 3K to close the round after denying the planter, denying the coverage, and denying the final attacker remaining. It's 3 in a row for MIBR.
Flawlessly done so far in the first half for MIBR, and for Tropicals, a lot left to be desired from. Even the way they went about dealing with that first initial line of defense, there were a lot of looming problems, like a lack of usage of that secondary utility. You had Yex sacrificing his option to bring out grenades and instead having him use secondary EMPs to maybe help his hard breacher of Levy. Yet neither the Sledge or Habana really used any of their utility to help assist the Iana of STK to clear out Perez, who was playing over by that bathroom with the help of a mirror window and some ADSs. If you saw a full-fledged effort to get rid of that smoke firsthand, we might have not seen as much, I guess, aggression and outright stoppage by MIBR for that top floor. But with Perez being given so many opportunities to bounce back, he'll do exactly that. He still is feeding plenty of information to his teammates as well, allowing a Nitro Cell to trade his body, and also, most importantly, waste 2 entire minutes of time, which kind of bit Tropicals in the end because they didn't have a lot of time to gather extra information when they were going for an execute.
Oh, look at this. Perez had a great read on that, was waiting for the sound of the rappel and pre-fired through the barricade once that sound was made. A trade, though, from Tropicals. Quick on the draw, making sure that Perez could not go unnoticed for much longer. Going 1 for 1 and a critical kill. Had Perez gotten that 1 kill and then gotten away scot-free, it is a very different story going forward. Tropicals, they need to find some momentum now if they want to get any foothold on this map, and it's going to be tough to do. You've got Lukid to worry about up above on the Vigil. First time we're seeing that operator here, and it's going to be very tough for STK to spot him out. A couple of drones potentially could still be thrown in, but take a look at the top right of your screen, that drone economy. Only 4 drones remain, and only 60 seconds have transpired into this round, John.
Lack of intel and really no way to counter the Vigil. The perfect environment for Lucan here as he springs up against SDK, and now you've got people trying to push him back outside of this piano position, but there's no one to really help out this person by the ticket window repel, so all that Lucan has to do is just waste more time, and he even has backup. There's an Oryx watching the red hatch drop. There's someone else by Bar, and there's the reaction by Lucan to score a second kill, and Tropicals, they're just sitting ducks waiting for someone to try and stop this man who could even go on a hop out if he really wanted to.
Yeah, if he wanted to dig the knife in deeper, he sends himself out the window to get that final kill. Instead, it is Levy who just walks into his open arms. Good grief. Talk about a vigil that dictated the course of the round. MIBR, they are feeling comfortable. It seems like there's nothing that Tropicals can do to slow them down. And that round, it started out with Perez, and then it was all Lucan. Just hanging out in piano, on stage, in between the couches, just moving around, staying active, and denying every single player from walking into the room. That is one way to slam Tropicals into the ground, and it's going to have them take a timeout here. An understandable timeout, John, after a round like that, after 4 rounds where they really haven't been that close.
And you mentioned it perfectly last round too, Jonah, the lack of intel that Tropicals had throughout the entire round from beginning to end. Starting out with that opening gunfight we saw in our replay by Perez, he was completely uncontested inside of Garage. There was no info on him, yet he had all the info in the world to at the very least find that opening kill on Taneskin, which even if we didn't see Lucan find any success in that round, or at least the amount of success he had back in round number 4, only having one vertical player for a bomb site like Mining Room and Fireplace, that can be detrimental. That can be your make or break position for Tropicals simply because of that opening gunfight. But not only that, the lack of info bit Tropicals in the rear once again as Lucan was evading every single piece of utility like those flash grenades and any extra drones that were left over to score 3 separate kills, and also have Tropicals run in blind throughout the rest of the roamers that were still extending up above because no one could apply pressure, with them already losing so many bodies to just 2 separate defenders.
Funny enough, and I don't even think we mentioned it in that last round, but that was actually the 4th bomb site in the rotation of MIBR. They went to mining and dining that time instead of, going back up to bar and cocktail initially. So 4 in a row, a clean 4-site rotation rather than a 3-site rotation. I mean, that's just an even bigger flex. Moving on now to bar and cocktail, where they put themselves in just such an upper hand at this point. Tropicals, they only have 2 more attacks to go, and while it's not necessarily required if they technically want to win this map, I really feels like that at this point, John, because they have yet to find any footing on this map, and even though what we saw last week, MIBR, a little weaker on the attacking side, clearly they've got a pretty good understanding of Cafe and how to beat their opponents on this map today at least. So a lot of work left to do for this attack. If they could get these next 2 rounds, I'll give them a fighting chance.
Yeah, MIBR, they are just flaunting at this point. If they were to go and lose round number 5 and 6, that would still be a default half, technically speaking, but they have just looked so strong against Tropicals, and we could maybe see some more of that magic begin to strike by Perez, trying to utilize his primary gadget to go for a hop out. And I think hearing that Heaven player, he'd go for it, but no, the impact doesn't work. I think that just stole a kill potentially from the Solus, even if that person was expecting it.
I think Perez wants this kill anyway. He's going to try to contest it on a different angle after the impact just kind of broke. Hunting for this kill on the repelled player at the Heaven window, just barely misses the shot. It's actually going to be Yex to get it. And that means the pressure from Tropicals is actually now going to get a little bit more daunting for MIBR to slow down. You've lost a key instrument in this defense. And now with several players working their way towards this east side, really it's Nigel, the next one to really slow down anybody who wants to pressure on that snow balcony. Instead, right, Tropicals, they're now going to start to try to envelop this top floor entirely, pressuring on this west side too. You see Lucan in the same position he was sitting in that last round, taking down Yex and equalizing the man count.
Yeah, this red play, it has to work. If
Ooh.
not, then you have these long angles to deal with. Perfect info, though, for PPW to score a very important gunfight against the Jaeger, which should give a little bit more room to breathe here for Tropic House, but there's still Lukid inside a piano.
Gets stunned, though, and has to make a more passive fight here. Has to play this more passive angle, given the pressure that Tropic House are building. But again, at 25 seconds left, Tropic House cannot afford to wait much longer. They know he's here, but they still have to deal with him. They're working their way up to Long Bar, though. They are working their way all the way through Cocktail, in fact. And Lukid, instead of being in a good position, he's isolated. Nigel's been stuck here in the White Hall for some time, unable to get back to the site. And that's going to stay the same, as that's exactly where he will die. Nigel falls there, top of White. And Tropic House, finally, they take their first round in dominant fashion.
And for a moment there, I thought they were going to try and attempt more of a cocktail-focused execute, especially since they killed the primary roamer of Perez. So you have your main plant now underneath, completely gone, and also, yeah, that impact. Still shocked about seeing that not work out, but besides the point, they killed the player underneath, so they could theoretically go for a cocktail plant, especially since they already have people on the window rappel, and they have another one on the skylight as well. But Tropic House, they also understand the importance of still going for red control in that position, because there are a lot of longer angles you can try to hold and retake from by still playing over by Cigar Shop. You can look right into Heaven across the new balcony, and over by the piano side, you can also look at the primary skylight drop, and from time to time also help out from Heaven if you need to. But it seemed to be more of a bait and switch for Tropic House in that round. They in fact try to plant over towards default and have a lot of longer cutoff angles once the Capital and Zofia barge into Cigar Shop and manage to get into the bomb site to plant, and again, stop anyone from piano to try to retake.
Well, finally, MIBR find a site that they cannot defend successfully, in this case, at least the second time around. So rather than going back to Bar and Cocktail for a third time, we are going to head down to the first floor, down to Kitchen, where MIBR, as every other site went as well, where they won this the first time around. It really came down to a successful roam, a successful extension by Perez in Reading Room last time we were here, but we're going to see a little bit of a difference, at least in terms of operator selection and which player is playing in an individual role. Perez is no longer on the Solus. Lukid is taking up that mantle, and rather than playing in Reading Room, he is currently positioned on the red stairs, a much more passive position at this point. But you know who's not playing passively? That'd be the player on the red stairs, rather on stage, dropping out. Reduct gets the one. Pardon me, we had two players in aggressive positions, but instead it was the Jaeger who actually chose to step up from stage. Dropped out that stage window, hunted for that frag, and found it, although he lost his life soon after. So MIBR continuing that aggression, showing that regardless of what may have happened in the last round, they're going to stay with their foot on the gas.
A 3-0 head-to-head between Reduct and Levy, really making a bold statement against your normal hard support player in this lineup for Tropic House, as now your flank watch is completely out of the picture. I'd say that's a fairly important gunfight to win and take against that gridlock, as now you have potential to maybe flank back up above, maybe deny some of that verticality from being as effective as it normally could be in this next minute 20, and just in general keep Tropic House on their toes, as again they no longer have that insurance policy when trying to make angles into the bomb site properly.
Yeah, at the end of the day, MIBR, I think that's a trade that they will take 9 times out of 10. Jaeger for gridlock early round before those track stingers could really make an impact. Like you said, John, I think MIBR, they're still going to be feeling comfortable here. Nade goes in, and SDK is going to chase right after it all the way up, hunting for the kill, but somehow it's denied. Nigel shuts down the Yana. No idea how he pulls that one off. Throws in a little drop shot just to make it even more painful for Tropic House. And in a round where it seemed like they might have been able to get a foothold over on that whiskey bar side and pushing into VIP, instead, it has crumbled to pieces. Neskin, the final player that remained, quickly falls to a nice couple of bullets from Perez there, who found 3, maybe 4 kills even in that round on the Warden. MIBR 5-1 at the half.
And I was going to say for a moment, it could be a huge issue for the smoke to be so isolated by VIP when you actively have someone pushing you from garage, looking down that main hallway, and also having someone by the double window that looks into VIP directly. But the defense of MIBR, they still had a defender over by Whiskey Bar. So if someone were to get too aggressive over by that VIP double window, they can shut them down, and that only leaves the smoke to reavert their focus back onto the player near garage. So it didn't make that much of a difference. It was just opposing angles being held that still got the job done. Not only that, but you still had several players up above gathering vertical, so they're not going to be in the best position to get those refrags on defenders who are not playing the site directly. That's more for the execute phase of the round, which Tropicals were still going for because they hadn't dealt with that extension properly, similar to what we saw back in round number 2, where there was just little to no contention in that round by Tropicals.
But here we go. We hit the reset button, essentially, as we switch sides. Yes, Tropicals are starting this half down by 4, but it is certainly not over yet. As our analyst desk, as Jacob and Connor mentioned before this game began, we've got to keep an eye on MIBR's attacks. It was their primary struggle when they played against W7M. They failed to really put together anything on the attacking side. The defense is where they thrive. Now, while that can be said for a lot of different maps and is generally the case in Siege, that defense has an advantage, defense doesn't typically have that 5-1 advantage. So no matter how you spin it, MIBR, they had a more than successful first half, and all they've got to do is take 2 attacks. They've got plenty of chances to make that happen. Tropicals need to build some momentum, and they've got to do it quickly if they want to have any hope as we go into round number 7.
STK just playing for his life here inside of Coat. He's got one ADS to maybe push away some of those grenades that could be tossed into his general vicinity, but still have to worry about that angle as well Nigel was holding just a second ago. Finally, STK begins to fall back, but doesn't completely give up Coat check just yet, as he knows how important this position can be to hold for the attackers. Not only that, but he also has Yexes who could try to get aggressive by the opposing doorway if he wants to, and Perez almost scoring a kill, holding that cutoff by the small bakery window. No fruit to gather from that just yet, though. Tropicals actually wasting a fair bit of time, so although STK hasn't been dropped up until now, it was still a fairly decent first round by him.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's pretty good pressure from Tropicals on this defense. MIBR yet to make a move until now, really. On their second attempt to really push into the map, they get denied outright. 3 kills back-to-back for Tropical. Levy now downed. Leaves Lukid and Nigel in this 2v4, well, I guess now 2v2 situation. Yex and Levy either downed or now finished off by a well-placed nade. An absolutely winnable situation still for MIBR. The problem is that Levy did not get finished off. So the smoke player, who still has one of these toxic babes in pocket, is still a threat to worry about. We crossed that 40-second mark, and MIBR, they know that at some point here, they're going to have to make a move. They do have a little bit of time to rotate around. That's exactly what Lukid's trying to do. Work his way towards this bakery double door, maybe get a surprise flank here or there. Problem is, there are still 3 defenders. You can't establish a crossfire on your own. Lukid losing this gunfight. That's not going to go too well. Nigel now, a couple of bullets come his way from Whiskey, a couple come from Small Bakery. And just like that, Tropicals will find some footing in that first defensive round, denying an explosive push in the mid-round.
The only thing they were not able to completely halt was that coat check take, but everyone else had done their job so well. Even getting case control inside a bakery, basically no man's land for MIBR. They didn't have a solid chance of trying to push in there with only 40 seconds to go and dealing with these longer angles. You had someone trying to retake that Whiskey/VIP position. So if you're trying to push the Echo from Small Bake, there's a really long angle you're going to have to challenge before even dealing with the Echo. So the best option that MIB had was to try to ignore some of those interior angles and try to rotate from the outside and maybe go for a 1-for-1. But with there still being a lot of information in that round for Tropicals to cycle from, they just picked out process elimination, managed to win their separate 1-for-1 gunfights and still keep the diffuser in their pocket in a 3v1, soon to be 3v0. So they're looking a little bit better now moving on to the second half. But again, you mentioned this point perfectly just a moment ago, Jonah. MIBR, they've got room to breathe because how well they did back in that first half.
Right, they still have a bit of a cushion to play with, but there's no doubt we did see a little bit of gaps emerge in that last round, right? We saw MIBR go for a almost entirely horizontal focus, directly pressuring that first floor, and they dealt with the consequences of that in the late round. Yes, they got the opening kill, pushing in, catching STK looking the other way, but when it came down to pushing the site, without much vertical destruction, Tropical's defenders could feel comfortable on the site. They didn't have to worry about moving around and exposing themselves to a different attacker's positions. They could sit comfortably back and wait. They could rotate around the first floor because there was nobody up above trying to pressure from train, from mining, from any of those angles that we do see pretty common. That's the risk that you have to weigh when attacking Kitchen and trying to go for vertical, trying to go for horizontal. Lot of different situations that can arise when you do or don't do that. MIBR, though, they'll be trying to, I guess, quickly alleviate those problems by getting an opener. Again, it's STK involved in the opening duel and losing the opening duel. 1-7 so far, and MIBR will be looking to continue that as they work their way in the map.
Forced to play against those windows is not going to bode well for the Mayas now. PPWS is the only person to defend this top floor with just one lonely shield to try to back him up as well. He's got some Toxic Babes to buy a little bit of time, but it might be better for him just to fall a little bit farther back and join forces here with Yex before he starts using that primary utility. He'll do exactly that now, playing close by the ADSs, so he's got a little bit more of a bundle in that position. But MIBR so far making good ground, not only scoring that opening gunfight, but now getting closer and closer to bring out these Rotero drones to start breaking the shields over by Cocktail Lounge, and maybe also having extra burn with those flashes for the ADS as we just talked about.
Smoke goes out. Only one remaining in the pocket of PPWS, and he's going to take a fight because of it. His job mostly done in terms of utility. The final smoke going out now, but here comes MIBR, finally pressuring into Cocktail, taking this fight with Yex and winning it. Second one, though, goes to Tropicals, as that's Levy who gets the kill onto Perez, equalizing almost immediately, but Nigel will clap back, taking down PPWS. The smoke is no more, and Levy and Neskin find themselves in an awkward situation. This shotgun, a boon in an engagement like this, and it'll work at least against the Yana. But there are 3 more attackers close behind. Only 25 seconds, though, so if Tropicals can find a way to waste the remaining few seconds on this clock, this is certainly not over yet. The nade, though, will force Levy's hand. He'll pop up and get that kill. The final blow onto Nigel. A 3v2, and MIBR need to get a move on. There's only 10 seconds. Trying to get this bomb down. The coverage now essential outside that reading door. Coverage was good enough to deny the mute from making any progress, and it's good enough to shut down Neskin too. Good shot there from Reduct. The mute, the last alive here in a 1v3 retake scenario, and simply just doesn't know exactly where he should be pushing from. There's somebody from MIBR up above, so even though Levy's got this kill onto Falls, this is still an uphill battle. Flash will slow him down, denying this angle. He's got to rotate wide around the pillars and try to surprise MIBR from behind. He creeps around, but his position is known. Reduct will swing and take the fight and win it. MIBR, they get the bomb down for, well, the first time on their half here, and they will take their first attack on this half, sending us to match point.
And the problem that Tropicals had with that composition for Reading Room was the fact that they didn't waste enough time to really force the hand of MIBR between a make or break situation, like having someone try to retake the top floor example, which, funny enough, MIBR also denied swimmingly against PPWS, I believe it was, when he was trying to work his way over towards White Stairs a moment ago. But for example, having STK die in just under a minute, especially because PPWS cannot help out STK, who's playing rather aggressive inside of that stage room, it's going to be even more successful for MIBR to push back Perez and
see what we did there? We pranked you.
We got you.
Absolutely pranked. We got you. You thought we were going away, but we are back just like that. I mean, right when you send to break the teams aside, let's go, let's get ready, let's get into the game. Honestly, we should do that more. We should just start cutting away, and then the moment we do that, maybe it'll just will the teams to get back into the game. But jokes aside, we are back into Cafe. It is 6-2 MIBR over Tropicals right now, and MIBR so far have looked clean for the most part since we've switched sides. After MIBR took that 5-1 lead, we've gone 1-1. Tropicals with the opener, MIBR with the response. And while Tropicals have looked totally fine on the defensive side, the fact of the matter is, John, they came out with a 4-point deficit. So you can't just look okay. You can't just look decent on the defense if you start out on attack like that. You've got to play flawless, essentially.
And hopefully for Tropical's defense, they could try to punish MIBR if they're the ones to not play all too flawlessly in this 9th round. They've got a couple of long-range mirrors stacked up to maybe help deal with some of that pressure over by the main piano side of the map. But all that you could use to really stop that dead in its tracks is maybe getting someone to rotate over onto the cocktail window. And already we're seeing a couple of rotations made by the offensive side of MIBR. I believe there was Perez playing over near the white window, which you can toss a couple of grenades in case someone's close by in bathroom, or just hold a cutoff angle in case someone is trying to retake Pixel once your teammates have already pushed into the building properly, which so far, that hasn't happened yet. MIBR just double checking, making sure they're not going to be walking in blind. They're going to gather a bit of information, and they realize that PPWS is a bit more aggressive by the humidor, but they drop down through that opened up hatch, and now it seems like the defense are looking to try to rotate against this primary extension by MIBR.
Yeah, for a second there, looked like we may have seen a classic, mute in the cigar box type hold. You got the castle barricade at your back. You've got some long angle mirror windows to support you. And then again, at the end of the day, you've got a shotgun in your hands to deny anyone from dropping the red stairs. But PPWS has since rotated away, so the focus will have to go elsewhere and on what MIBR are hoping to do to make additional progress. One slight concern here for Tropicals was the sound we just heard, the C4 from Levy detonating a bit prematurely. Didn't find any purchase on the attackers just then, so will go down as a piece of utility wasted. One thing that they have also wasted, though, and I guess this is a good thing for Tropicals, is the time. John, there's only a minute left for MIBR to get this going.
Been a rather slow attack so far for MIBR, not even getting anything opened up here in terms of angles to really push back Tropicals. They still have so much utility bundled up into the bomb site. They'd really have to hope that one of these maybe window repel angles could net them a kill, because if not, they've got to worry about a 5-on-5 position in these last 30 seconds, and there's PPWS playing underneath. If he's got info, he could deny the plant easily with a shotgun.
Luka, you see him bouncing back and forth, nervous of this mirror window. Understandably, it's a tough angle to fight. You've got to be careful there. PPWS will take a bit of damage and actually get downed now, finished off by Reduct below. But with only 15 seconds, MIBR, they're going to have to swing in and make the move here. 2, 3 denials now for Tropicals. Lukid answers, but with 8 seconds, they're going to flood into Cocktail and find EX lying in wait. There's nowhere to go. Tropicals have got it covered, and round number 9 will go their way.
Unfortunately, just spending too much time trying to get their way inside of Cigar proper, and that didn't really give them any benefit. Tropicals were playing into that default style clear that MIBR were opting to go for by having a mirror window with this long angle opened up to make sure no one can really push past that direction, and they have to go elsewhere. And MIBR just didn't get the ball rolling across the other side of the map until the final minute or so. That just gave more time for Tropicals to set up and be prepared for that eventual, cocktail / new balcony execute, which didn't really bode well for them because there were so many players still alive in that round, and there had been so much ground that MIBR still needed to take with such limited time. But like we mentioned beforehand, there are a lot of rounds that Tropicals still need to get in order for them to go to overtime. But one thing I think we just noticed here, Jonah, are we going to see Perez stick the Bravo, or I might have spoke too soon?
Yeah, after all that talk during the rehost, I think we might finally see Brava make her debut today. At the very least, we saw, again, 4 plays of Brava last time we were here last week. And this time it'll be the first. Let's keep an eye on that. Again, those clutch drones have the ability to work their way into the map, taking care of that defensive utility and swinging it in the favor of the attackers. Generally, so far, what we've seen across the regions, that's been an information focus. It's not as much going to be the explosive Capcan utility like you saw in the release trailer, but it is equally impactful, arguably more impactful than a simple EDD explosive. It's information that everyone on your team can use to their benefit. So we'll certainly keep an eye on that. But for now, MIBR, before they get into the building and deal with that utility, they're going to work their way onto the roof. As it appears, they're going to go for the full top-down clear as Tropicaus defend the kitchen. MIBR want to take the entire map of control.
And you saw Perez looking at that top pillar camera to see if it was up for a flank cam, and unfortunately he's only able to get the one by the reading hallway. Still, a lot of info being gathered just in general by this clutch drone, noticing that there's no one playing on that middle floor, and I believe the top floor has already been cleared out as well, so it's just going to be a bunker setup done by Tropicaus, allowing MIBR to now hop down into the building itself and probably get some vertical down at a very good time in this round. A minute 40, and they're already making angles into the bomb site. That's also going to give them more leeway to not only hold cutoff angles against this extension, but also have players move into the basement to actually push into that extension properly. Or I guess I should say the first floor, but I think everyone gets the gist.
Well, I mean, this is a big difference than what we saw MIBR do in their very first attack on Kitchen. They didn't take much vertical control whatsoever. It was a horizontal focus entirely. They've completely flipped the script here in an effort to hopefully alleviate the problems they had in that first attack. So far, I like what we're seeing. Again, it all comes down to that transition, though. You've got the map control. You got to now figure out how to actually make and execute happen.
Still plenty of time to get a bit more information here. PPWS seems to be pretty comfortable in the back of Bakery, just playing in the middle of it. A drone does locate him, but having that ADS as well just to burn through any initial utility, that can give him time to rotate, but now he's going to worry about two separate attackers, but what a swing on the Nigel.
Yeah, that's one way to start. Gets denied, though, as he tries to get out of Bakery and retreat to safety. Reduct will get 2 before eventually falling. That turns us to a 3v3 as we cross that 30-second mark. Falls now taking a position in Bakery. Lukid joining him up above to try to get that pressure and deny any sort of flank from someone like Neskin. He's not on the site. Only Yex is alone on the objective to fend off this attack. If Neskin can surprise the sledge up above, sure, this will work well, but instead, all he's done is isolate the Kaid down below. Neskin is going to chase down these attackers, but it is far too late. Perez has already done the damage onto the Kaid, and now the bomb is going down. Falls going for this plant. Neskin isolated and not using the vertical play up above either to try to stop it. Early GGs from MIBR. Perez will pay for that as he tries to get aggressive and go for the pistol kill. It's not over yet, but it is still not probable. Neskin tucked in the corner, taking a moment to regroup, seeing what kind of comms the team has, any intel they might have about these positions of the attackers. But with only 20 seconds, he has only 13 seconds to get a move on. He's got to pick up the pace here if he wants to have any chance. MIBR doing such a good job of playing passively. Neskin running out of time, tucked behind the bomb chassis. That's Falls, and he will die, but it simply doesn't matter. The round is over. Lukid will expose himself and die in the end, but Tropicaus cannot get the counter defuse, and MIBR on round 10 will finally close this one off. It's 7-3 here on Cafe. The Tropicaus debut not going as they had hoped.
And the way that MIBR chose to attack in those final moments of the round was brilliant. They had 3 separate attackers all focused on one isolated defender that was inside of Bakery. And sure, that cost the life of the Iana, but swiftly after, you get a refrag on the player who's over by the small Bakery window, and now you've got full control of that half of the map essentially, and you can start pushing and poking into the bomb site with vertical control. So you know for a fact there's a very limited